Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week is going to be this turn of the singer-songwriter and one-time member of the Sheffield indie band, the Bollweevils, because I recently spoke to Sarah Griffiths to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Now is a member of the band called Duck. Indeed she is, and also has been in a lot of other musical combos, but you'll find out more about that during this long interview, so sit back, relax and enjoy. So after several minutes of casual chat, we got down to that very exciting subject that was the early formative years. Sarah, it's over to you.
My mum was really into pop music, like really into music, so she always had like Radio 1 on. It was all like pop music. She sort of kept up with everything, right till up to till the end, actually. I mean, she loved her pop music, so that was a big thing. There was always music in the house. I love singing. Me and my sister played like classical instruments.
Right.
I played viola, she played violin. She was an absolutely brilliant classical guitarist. So yeah, it was all very musical. We were in like orchestras and choirs and stuff. There was all that. Because Sheffield was brilliant at that point, because we were from a very, very working class background as well, but there was like a free service in Sheffield where if you showed some aptitude at school, you were given an instrument for free and you got free music lessons in school on that instrument.
Goodness me, we just had a triangle. And that was it. All we had was a triangle that sometimes you could be given to play, but if you messed it up, that was the end of the time with the triangle. It was just gone. It was just taken away. So, yeah. I mean,
that's gone now, obviously. That went by the wayside, but
yes. I think Gary Barlow tried to sort of get that with one of those elections with David Cameron. He was going to give kids lots of music lessons and probably teach them as well. Dear old Gary. So many promises we had then. But yeah, so yes, that was definitely a progressive period then, because we just, like I said, music wasn't really a big thing in playing music, because unfortunately I was not one of, because I get asked, well, you were in a band. It's like, we didn't really have bands in the countryside. We played football and just climbed trees and ran around in rubber boots, really. So yeah.
I mean, we did that as well. I think the sort of the first band for putting together never played a note together, but we had like the name and the look. You know, we were about 12.
God, that's very cool.
We didn't play anything.
No.
We literally like ripped up some sheets and dyed them, and they were our costumes.
So what was the first single you bought then? Did you go sort of manage to sort of save 69p
with my own? Yeah, basically I can't remember whether it was 17 by the Regents or Einstein a Go-Go by Landscape. It was it was one of the two, and it was from Fred Hartley's on our shops in Freshfield in Sheffield, and they were ex-jukebox, so it probably had just fallen out of the charts and the jukeboxes would restock, and then that old stock would go to this DIY store, and they all came without the middles because they'd been ex-jukebox.
Yes, that's so frustrating.
It was one of those two was the very first one that I bought, like with my own pocket money.
Yes. So did you have an older brother or sister who was also into music?
Yeah, older sister, a year older than me, and the older brothers and sisters of friends were a big influence.
Yes. We always looked up to those people, because I had an older brother. I had two, but one especially I thought he was wonderful. He was 7 years older than me, and he turned me on to all the great music of that period. Yeah, no, he didn't. It was Yes, Genesis, Wishbone Ash, Bathory, James Hodges, and the solo work of Rick Wakeman. So I've got a bit of a prog world going on. There was a little part of my past which I'm just very surprisingly into that world, which was a bit strange. But yes, prog. Thank God he didn't want to be.
I didn't really have a prog. I didn't have a prog phase.
Oh, you didn't miss much. It was terrible.
I had a. I was. I was sort of into like punk. Which then turned into goth,
yeah.
which then turned into sort of jangly indie stuff.
So we didn't have punk at all in the countryside. We had Status Quo. That was the main band that you
Oh, we
couldn't.
had those as well.
We couldn't say anything
Status Quo.
against the Quo because you'd get beaten up. So I remember even with you couldn't even pretend to like that sort of that revival of two-tone with the bands like the Beat or the Specials because
Oh,
you
I remember that as being an amazing time because I'd be about 9 or 10, and like Madness and the Specials, all that ska stuff, all that two-tone stuff was just absolutely brilliant. Like I remember being dressed up as a little cat on Halloween when we had a Halloween party at school, and all we had was a copy of we had the single of Baggy Trousers, Madness,
yes.
and we just basically played that over and over and over again. And the teacher was like, "If you don't all stop dancing like that, I'm gonna turn that off," because we were all doing all the the madness dance. It was just it was brilliant.
It would, yeah. I
Music for
could,
kids.
and I remember the video was yes, we'd have got it. So you were then. So were you born sort of the early 70s? You're sort of
I was 1970.
right. There you go. So when the band started, oh right. So the early 70s, you weren't one of those kind of people who were about like like a lot of indie kids who were about 16, 17 and were feeling like, oh my God, I'm just going to be unemployed. You were just kind of basically a very young teenager during that period.
During the 80s, yeah. I mean, it did come into play, obviously. I was a young teenager through that period.
Yes.
I remember it well because it was the only time my dad had ever been out of work. It affected everybody.
Yes. Oh, was it a coal mining or steel industries that your dad was in?
Sheffield's like steel industry town, but no, he wasn't involved in that. It was just the climate at the time. I mean,
yeah, it was horrendous. Yes.
Yeah.
Thatcher got in 79. We had the Falkland crisis, and then there's the miners' strike, and then you had Greenham Common, and then a bit further along you had things like the Battle of the Beanfield with all the Travellers and all that kind of world, and anarcho-punk started. So yeah, it was quite grim. But there was a lot of indie bands started during that period because you could claim unemployment really easily, and also there was something called job seekers allowance, where if you had £1,000 mysteriously in your bank account, you could
for 2 minutes.
Yes, you go, oh, okay, we'll be on this scheme, and you could pretend to be a self-employed, I don't know, flower.
That is exactly what I did. What I did. I went on the enterprise allowance scheme when I was just late teens, I guess, as the Bollweevils.
As the Bollweevils, yes, that was
a bit more money every week. So I did that for a year, I think.
So were the Bollweevils your first band, or had you been already? Yeah. So what was your first band before them?
Very first band was called The Reptile House. I was 14, and there were a couple of lads in the neighbourhood that had a band, and they were looking for a singer. So I just turned up. I thought, this is what I really want to do. I didn't want to do the classical stuff anymore. I wanted to be in a band. That's where my passion was. And it was the first time I sung through a microphone, through a PA. And yeah, I just loved it.
It just happened.
And they were all sort of going, oh, you sound like Susie. And I was like, oh, God.
Yes.
When you're 14, that's what you want to hear. And it just sort of went from there. Then my sister joined that band as well. Yeah, it was good fun. So played a couple of first gig was at a youth club. We all bunked off school to play this afternoon gig at a local youth club. Like the drum was like 13.
My God, that's just child labour, isn't it? That's amazing.
Well, I don't think we were paid.
Yeah, that's very
We wanted to do it.
And what was the chef? I mean, what was your first gig you went to?
My first ever gig was Kajagoogoo at Sheffield City Hall.
Excellent, too shy.
That was the very first gig I ever went to. I was about 12, and I screamed the entire way through it.
Wow,
I was just that sort of mass hysteria.
Yes.
But what's funny is actually no, it wasn't Kajagoogoo, because I was looking at your podcasts and I saw that you had interviewed someone from H2O.
Yes, just the other day.
Now, H2O was supporting them. So in actual fact, H2O were the first band I ever saw on at a concert.
Oh, see, look, he's just brought out a single on Alan McGee's record
Right,
label in Donaldson. Yes.
right.
H2O. So yeah, I was going to say, I wasn't going to mention that because I thought that's so obscure. But yeah, he suddenly said, he was talking about the early musical period of that band because they were quite slick and they got on a record label. And I listened to it.
Yeah.
I thought, oh yeah, that's very cool. No, I didn't. I
It's
thought
like
it was
I
nice.
Dream to Sleep, I think was their hit, wasn't it? I think.
God, you've got an amazing memory. That's 40 years ago, and but I didn't actually know them. And he said, "Yeah, we supported Kajagoogoo," and I was like, "Wow,
Yeah, I was there, man. At
you
City
were
Hall,
there."
Sheffield.
Yes, because he had been in a little punk band with Alan McGee, and then they obviously from there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so that's the Alan. They were from Glasgow, he was from
Yeah.
Glasgow, and then they were in this band. And then and then a few months ago, I did an interview with a member of the Farmers Boys, who were the local legends in this area.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
And they signed to EMI Records on the same day as Kajagoogoo. And I was thinking, this is brilliant. This is so much pop trivia. I can't cope. And he said it was a bit strange because they looked like, Farmers Boys, and Kajagoogoo definitely didn't look like them at all. They didn't know what a pitchfork was, or what a piglet even looked like properly. Yeah, so there you go. That was your first band. God, I know the first band is always the most exciting in your life.
I didn't, because I wasn't even that into Kajagoogoo, but I was allowed to go. I think I only knew like the singles, the 2 or 3 singles. But I was allowed to go with my sister and a friend. I'd been pestering. I mean, I wanted to go and see, Culture Club, Adam and the Ants, Duran Duran. This is the first one I've been allowed to go to. So that was why I ended up there. And it was just so exciting. And yeah, even though I didn't really know much of their stuff, but it was just really exciting. And I did that,
screamed,
completely cliched thing of just screaming my head off through the entire thing,
which is impressive because apart from Too Shy, I probably do look on Spotify at these things just to sort of, it's like, no, I have no idea what their second single was, but obviously I know the bass player is held up in great sort of critical esteem as being fantastic. Nick
Beggs,
right? Yes, he lost.
I remember.
No, it's cool. So then. Because for me, there was that kind of the punk period, which totally missed me, the post-punk period, which is kind of a bit difficult. There was like, Gang of Four magazine, Public Image Limited, kind of scratchy kind of sound, which was all very sort of intense. And then the early indie world that was kind of Simple Minds, U2, and I don't know, Echo and the Bunnymen, Julian Cope. And then for me, 83, it was the year of the Smiths, and suddenly everything was so different.
Oh,
so
I was totally in love with the Smiths at that point.
Yes. So we had this kind of 5-year glorious period of indie pop.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was all these other bands like the June Brides and the Go-Betweens, the Triffids, the Chills. I mean, it just was like, no... Except I won't go through them. It's quite
reel them all off.
Reel them all off, as well as people like Stump, Big Flame, and Bogshed, who were very exciting.
Yeah. All those.
It was all kind of fantastic. So when the Bollweevils started, was this kind of 85 period?
No, I joined. Must have been 88. I think I was 17.
Right.
The Bollweevils had already been going a few years because the Bollweevils were essentially Mark Johnson, who went on to play the guitarist,
yes,
and Ray Russell, who was the lyricist and also managed us for a while. So they were the Bollweevils. They used to write songs in their halls at uni.
Right.
And what happened was my band and Steve McKevitt's band were both rehearsing at the same place, and we both broke up around the same time, our bands. And Steve was trying to get something going with me and my sister, but despite the fact that she was an amazing musician, amazing bass player, amazing classical guitarist, she couldn't play rhythm guitar. We just couldn't transfer the skills. So we ended up looking into something else. At one point, I remember Steve coming around to my mum and dad's house when I had tonsillitis, and he came round with a tape saying, "Oh, the guy from the Bodines has written these songs. Shall we form a band with him?"
God, can you remember which member?
I haven't got a clue. It was a long time ago.
Yes, I know. This is like some sort of quiz, isn't it? Really. So
Yeah.
yes, my God, this is very exciting. Yeah, because I
Well,
think
and then
yeah,
no, but then he knew that Mark and Ray were writing songs, and they were kind of good. They put a tape out and stuff, and we were saying we should get together with them, form a band,
and you said
which
that's
we
a
did.
great idea. So then
Oh, yeah.
when did you have your first rehearsal? Was like 87, 88 time?
Around that time, yeah. And we used to practice in Mark's bedroom in his student house. And I had nothing to do with students in Sheffield up until that point. You know, my only experience of student life was the young ones, and it wasn't that far off.
No, I mean it was all a bit like
But
that, wasn't it?
they were, you know, they were from
Cornflakes
quite.
and water, really, wasn't it? It was a diet of cornflakes, water.
Yeah, but
Everyone smoked as well,
they
didn't
were
they?
also from quite middle class backgrounds as well, and I'd never really met anybody like that before, and they'd never really met anyone like me before. So, because they didn't really, students and the locals
They
didn't
never
really
do.
mix.
They don't do them. They don't like each other. They
So it was an
don't.
eye opener for all of us, really. I think.
And were they keen to have a sort of female-fronted women or singer? You know, was there a kind of a plan? Or was it like, actually, no one else can sing and you can, so let's not beat around the bush?
No, well, I think there was some resistance from Mark at the beginning because he's got a really good voice and he sang all their songs, and then we sort of just came round to it sounded good when we played together, so we just got on with that. Some point along the way, me and Mark became a couple and started writing the songs together. And Ray, who'd been writing the lyrics, then took more of a managerial role in the band. And where he worked, he used to use a photocopy to print off loads of flyers and posters and stuff. Sorry, I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
Yes, no, this is the early period of the band. And did you, I mean, at that stage, it's kind of interesting. I mean, being young is just fantastic because you still got that kind of youthful enthusiasm, stroke, and with naivety, which is really important. But because it's kind of an interesting period, because I mean, it's probably not this simplistic, but I know when the Smiths broke up in 87, it felt like, wow, that's a moment. And then there's the whole kind of ecstasy world that starts to appear. And then the next wave of bands that are sort of happening, I suppose, are people like the Primal Scream, the Stone Roses, Happy Monday. So you get all this kind of dance groove, and then you get people like the Orbs start, doing their ambient chill out stuff.
I mean, it was just a massive change, wasn't it? And
it was a bit of a change.
The cliche wasn't it? Well, there's always been a dance element to our music.
Yeah, mysteriously, yeah, the Soup Dragons managed to do that one so well.
Yeah,
frankly, you couldn't have seen it in their 2-minute little jingly songs, could you? But they did.
No,
they did hit sort of the part. So, did it feel with the band? I mean, was it quite a serious kind of idea at the time? Because that's the one thing I've noticed doing these interviews, that everyone took it pretty seriously. It wasn't like, oh, we're not that bothered, It was like, God, real commitment. Did it have a feeling that the band were on a mission?
No, we weren't on a mission. We just really enjoyed it, and I think Steve was the one with any kind of ambition in terms of, I'm doing air quotes now if you're listening at home.
Yes.
Success. But I mean, we wanted to take it as far as we could, obviously, but it wasn't like we were, priming ourselves to be pop stars or anything.
Yes. Because your first single you released is called "Talk to Me," isn't it? I think that's right.
That's right.
Decoy, which is a classic. It was a fantastic indie song, isn't it? Can you remember much about how that came together?
It was written by Ray and Mark. Ray wrote the lyrics, and it was just a really strong song from that first set of songs that we had.
Yes,
we recorded it in a little studio. I listened to it. I did listen to it the other day, actually. And I just thought, that sounds all right. This,
Well, actually, it's, they're all, from, It Cheers Me Up Considerably, Unreasonable, Worlds Apart, Out of Time. I mean, they all got a quality to them. But I think Talk to Me is just a stunning song. Actually, it's one that you can play endlessly, isn't it? It did. I mean,
that's so good. I mean, I wish you'd chosen one that I'd written, obviously, but I'm sure Ray and Mark would love to hear that.
Yes. Well, no, I mean, they're all good. I mean, but I just know that one does kind of, oh, actually, this is, yeah, you never know, do you? So it's a good one. So can you remember going into the studio and recording that?
Yeah. I think we did it in Jump Studios in Sheffield, which was housed in a kind of falling down ex-industrial sort of building with an outside toilet, which didn't suit me well at all. I used to go up to the pub.
Yes, well, and standards.
And you're not catered for in these places. With a guy called Tomo, who was a really sound bloke. I don't know what he's doing now. And it was really cheap. I think it was like a few £100. And we did it. It seemed to be like trouble-free. It seemed to just like flow, you know?
Yes.
I was very, very self-conscious. I think at that point, I actually made them turn my voice off in the control room so they couldn't hear me while I was recording.
Yeah.
Because I was just so self-conscious.
I think Jimi Hendrix was also very, shy with his vocals. So I think you're in good company.
I'm in good company.
You're in very good company. But you got a record deal quite quickly as well. Decoy Records.
Relatively quickly, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, I was so young, and you just thought, well, this is what happens, isn't it, when you're in a band? You get a record deal, you get written about in NME and Melody Maker and stuff. It's just,
it does just happen.
It's
quite interesting because you do have, I mean, at that stage, there were these kind of fantastic gatekeepers that we just took for granted. But, 3 weekly music papers with huge circulation.
Yeah.
John Peel's show, which just again had a fantastic reach, and it was quite a critical mass people who listened to it.
Definitely. I mean, I have so many memories of like me and my sister in our bedroom, and waiting with the tape player to take stuff off John Peel. That's what you did.
I know.
So it was actually hugely exciting when we ended up on the show. That was probably like.
You'd made it. You'd gone
the
to
high point. It was.
Well, no, I mean, getting a John Peel session is kind of everything.
We didn't get a session. No, we never got a session.
Oh no, he gave you a play.
I know. Yeah, he played us a couple of times. He never gave us a session though, which is obviously unfortunate because we could have bought the arse off everybody with it for the next 30 years.
Yes,
I've met so many people who are, kind of use that as a personality trait. It's quite.
Yeah, put it on your LinkedIn. Yes. Oh, John Peel would have been just everything. I know. It's such a shame. He should have done, really. I mean, did you? Yeah, because with Sheffield, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, Cherry Red Records has put out I don't know, was it a 3 or 5 CD box set of music from that period, from your area, which did it feel like Sheffield had a very sort of vibrant music scene? I say that because Norwich I found was a little bit dull.
Funny enough, Mark was from Norwich. Mark's from Norwich originally.
Was he?
Yeah.
My God. Yeah. That's amazing. I would.
So that's how I came to know the Farmers Boys as well, because that was a big deal. Obviously,
we had the Farmers Boys, Cirrus Drink, and the Higsons. The latter two, to be honest, they're fine, but they're not amazing. And there's a few other little quirky bands that. We're nothing, we're good. I don't want to knock it because, I was never in a band, but, it didn't have that, wow, Cherry Red Records has brought out this, 5 CD box set of Norwich bands. I think they would struggle. But, obviously Sheffield has got quite a, heritage of bands, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. There seemed to be loads of bands about at that point, loads of really good bands, and who were all quite different as well.
And did you see Pulp in that period?
Do you know what? I didn't. I know Mark and Ray saw them, like really, really early on. I don't think I ever saw them.
Yes, well,
which is ridiculous, isn't it?
You had people like obviously Heaven 17, but then there was just loads of I don't know, massive amount of bands, which were just, quite groovy from the what's it, the Prams, AC Temple,
Well, I was going to say AC Temple because they were brilliant. And I think they were on like Blast First and stuff. So they were like, they were really cool. I would have loved to have been in that circle.
Yeah. What about Tree Bound Story or bands like that?
Tree Bound Story. Well, I think we played with Tree Bound Story. Was that Richard Hawley's?
Possibly.
Richard Hawley was in Tree Bound Story, wasn't he? Yeah, I think.
And 1000 Violins was also one of the bands on that compilation.
I remember the name. I can't remember anything about them.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of bands about. There were a lot of. There weren't a lot of women in bands.
No, there wasn't. Was there?
Bit of an oddity.
Which is a bit strange because the 80s did the indie scene did help to sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say it redress the balance, but there were much more, like from people, I don't know, I'm going to stumble now, aren't I? From Everything But the Girl, but Everything But the Girl, the Sundays was there, weren't they?
There were plenty of female voices.
Yes,
certainly, but you're always going to be held in to different standards than the guys in the band.
I know it's a very unfair world, isn't it? It is terrible. But yeah, I know. God, you up? Yeah, it's a terrible. Yeah, God, it was a difficult.
When you're like really, really young as well. I mean, like they were my, I suppose, formative years as much as anything. There's sort of my late teens, and reviewers were so mean then.
I know.
They must mean.
Cringe, they must cringe at some of their reviews now when they've.
Well, I hope so.
I mean, because it's not good, is it? And some of the comments, because you did have, I suppose, the Primitives and Darling Buds as well, but obviously that then becomes a bit of a cliche as well, doesn't it? So
well, yeah, I mean, I had bleached blonde hair, and suddenly it's like, oh, this blonde thing, so I dyed it, and we weren't lumped in with them so much anymore. But yeah, it's just a really odd thing. It's like there's only so much room. There's only so many women you can have at one time.
Yeah. It would just
doing anything in music, and you will get compared to each other. Quite often quite cruelly, and it's not good.
I would imagine could do hell to your personal esteem and confidence, really.
Definitely, yeah.
I know it's a tricky. I think being on stage must be quite an odd feeling as well. But yes, in that context, at that period, it must have also been a bit more tricky. So when you had the sort of hopeful, the success of your first single, what was it like, sort of, with your follow up with? Yes, the next one, which was going to be Life's a Scream, which is also, was this on Decoy again, or was this not on Decoy?
I think I think it was Decoy. I think they've certainly put the money up for it. Yeah, it was kind of torturous.
Oh, that's a bit early days to be torturous. That's normally a bit long.
I know, but it was. What we should have done, I think, is just gone back to the same studio and banged out another good EP.
Yes.
But you always have that. It's always like carrot and stick thing. You always want to go to the next thing. You want to. It's got to be better, and being better means chucking more money at it or being somewhere with more equipment, and that's just not always the case, as I've learned since. We had Stephen Singleton
from ABC.
From ABC, who, I adored ABC. Lexicon of Love was like a massive album in my house. So I was really, really pleased about that. And he was supportive for lots of years, actually. But because we were originally going to have Bob Mould. Well, we wanted Bob Mould.
Oh, God, I loved Husker Du.
I know. And I loved his solo stuff.
Workshop.
That was a really big deal. But that kind of went by the wayside. But anyway, we got Steve at that point. We got Stephen in and booked Fon Studios in Sheffield, which was nothing like anything any of us had ever seen. Proper, so much money in that studio. Loads of new toys. It was I found it very intimidating.
Yes.
It was so bizarre. I mean, So I went going to the kitchen one day, and Boy George is in there like toasting a mushroom, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I don't really belong here. It's
Oh
weird.
my God, I know. It's quite tricky to know what to say to a famous pop star toasting a mushroom, isn't it? God.
I think he just went, all right. All right. Just sort of
Yes.
walked out again. Felt very uncomfortable in those sort of surroundings. But
and were you, I mean, at that stage, because there were also other bands that had been starting to really come together. I suppose that you had that sort of North London scene, didn't you, with people like My Bloody Valentine and Silverfish and the Faith Healers, and the Sundays that appeared in sort of the late 80s as well, which kind of,
yeah,
there was still quite a nice kind of vibe going around. Did you, I mean, and then sort of a few years later, there were people like Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine, headlining Glastonbury, which was fantastic,
yeah.
in a kind of bizarre ways. They went from, little indie clubs to suddenly Glastonbury. Did you, I mean, at that stage, were you still kind of enjoying being in the band? I mean, was this something that was kind of a full-time kind of emotional commitment for you?
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, it's really it's difficult to explain. I think the point I should have just left is the point where our drummer was fired from the studio when we were recording the Lives of Scream EP. And I've learned since, if something doesn't feel right, you have to walk away from it. But at that point, there were so many factors. Like we would still had a record contract, still needed to make an EP. But I believe Steve talked about that on his thing anyway.
Yeah, I can't. Yes, to be honest, I can't have no recollection of.
Well, of course, you wouldn't.
It's all a bit of a blur, actually. But yeah, okay.
Well,
so was that Chris Coyle who?
Yes.
exited? Right.
Yeah,
So
he was a drummer. He's a really good drummer.
My God, he got the red
lad.
card. So did you get another man?
But he couldn't play to a click track.
Oh, the click track. Oh God,
and it's so like, do we even need a click track?
Yes.
But they got all these new toys and like this automated desk and stuff, and you had to have a click track then. And it kind of got a bit ridiculous. You couldn't play to it, so we got someone else in. Really great drummer called Caroline Bowden. But it wasn't us. It wasn't the sort of thing I wanted to be doing at that point, I don't think.
Yes. Well,
but you hang on in there, don't you?
Well, I mean, we've all done it, haven't we? You thought, if only we'd had a proper thought. But then it was still kind of early days of the band, and it did seem to have some magic and potential. I mean, was that the kind of hope that you would get through that moment, and it would then was that new member going to be part of the band, or was it just for the studio?
No. I think someone asked her, and she said no. She'd got other stuff to do. So, yeah, I can't remember how long there was between these things happening, but we did eventually get another drummer called Pete. Anyway, I felt very, very bad about what happened to Chris.
Yes.
And, I wish I hadn't been a 19-year-old trying to please everyone.
Yeah,
and I wish I'd gone, do you know what? Sod this. I'm off.
Yeah, well, God, when you watch that the Wedding Present film, there's an awful lot about the click track, and also the one on, Patty
Schemmel.
Yeah, if you watch that,
I've seen that actually. I have seen that.
She hits so hard. It's all about the click track and the way they sort of broke her, literally emotionally broke her to pieces.
It happened to lots. It must have happened to a lot of people.
Yes,
simultaneously around those sort of early 90s.
Well, with the Go-Betweens, that was even worse because they were a couple, Robert and Lindy, and the producer said, "Look, we can have it like this without Lindy drumming, and you'll have a really great song, and it will, hit, album, or we could have, Lindy in it, and it won't be very good. It's your choice." And I think he went, "Well, I'll go with the producer rather than my partner at the time." It's like, yes,
that's horrible. That is horrible, and
it's a cruel
I was never
time.
like that. Yeah. Never like that, and neither was Mark. And wasn't a fan of the industry per se. I mean, the whole business side of things was just, to me at that point, obviously I was a child, very scary and impenetrable. To be honest, I just wanted to sing in a band, with even the tiniest little bit of success comes all that bollocks along with it, unfortunately.
Yes, and it is quite tricky. So then, as we get into the John Major years, what happens with the band for the next year? Because do you then go back to the studio and do this record in mouth, and then bring out the album Life's a Scream? Is that, or was Life a Scream something that happens when the band has just about had it?
Well, we had to have it remixed for a start. Alan Scott came and remixed it and made it sound better, because it didn't sound how he wanted it to sound. Steve was really good. Steve Singleton was really good. Don't get me wrong, had loads of great ideas, but it wasn't how he wanted it to turn out. So I think the record company got Alan Scott to come and remix it, and it did sound better after that. And I'm just trying to think. So we'd have got Pete in on drums, and then we got management. Which really, really put the...
yes, finding a manager. How do you go around? Because it's not something that people go to college or get some good habits from somebody else. The managers are quite odd, aren't they? How did you find your manager?
Well, Pete Darnborough, who was the drummer, worked at Red Tape Studios in Sheffield, which is like a council-run studio. It's still going today.
Fantastic.
It's a brilliant place. Trains a load of sound engineers and music industry stuff. And this was pre-internet. So in a way, I think he was kind of like a gatekeeper, because he'd answer the phone to record companies and so on, asking if anything was going on in Sheffield. And I honestly think they phoned Red Tape and he probably went, well, I'm in a band. And I think that's how it started. We went to meet them in Manchester, and they took us to Main Road to see Simple Minds, and we were like in the director's box and stuff.
My God, that's just...
And it was so like weird. It was like they were proper whining and dining us, and it seemed legit, Again, quite uncomfortable. Yes. Although I was quite happy because the Stranglers were supporting, and I loved the Stranglers, and John Jack Bennell was wandering about the bar, which was great.
At that age, I mean, we would have just been trying to steal wine, chocolate, food, even toilet rolls. We were hopeless in the 80s. We'd always do the most hideous things when you look back on it. It's like, get your bag, get the booze. No one's got it. We'll get some toilet roll. We haven't got any. We lived in those kind of places. Actually, it was terrible. We were quite feral. Yes, but anyway, if we'd gone there, we'd have been removing furniture, I think.
So I mean, that's gonna make you think, oh, these people are serious, isn't it?
Yeah,
when none of us had any interest at all in Simple Minds. Anyway, this manager, I'll say his name, Peter Williamson, kind of I'm just trying to think how best to tell the story. He was an odd character, but
right.
he made you believe that he could make things happen, because certain things would happen.
Yes.
Like we got to record Mouth in Savart in Glasgow with Jim Beattie. Again, I just couldn't believe it. Sonic Flower Groove was one of my favourite things ever at that point, or had been when I'd been at school.
Yeah.
So I was just absolutely over the moon that we were going to get Jim Beattie, and so that happened, made that happen. So why wouldn't you make other things happen? He's essentially a fraudster.
Right. So did he have any kind of previous band experience? I mean, or was he just...
He told us he was a tour manager for Simple Minds.
Right.
That he'd been in various bands, I think, and he just told us like loads of crap, basically. And it's entirely possible he was in the crew at some point, Simple Minds, because I believe he was married to a cousin of Jim Kerr's. So they might have taken him on to do something.
Yeah.
But that's what he told us. And he also he got a partner who was this really lovely accountant from Glasgow who he'd managed to hoodwink as well. But yeah, it was all this really like weird big gestures. Very odd man. And he did actually end up going to prison for fraud.
God, it's a classic story. Yes, it does. It's one of the great ones, isn't it? I mean, there was a lot about, wasn't there? I was just reading a book on Morris Levy, who was one of these guys from the 50s and 60s in New York, and I mean, he'd spent all his life in the music industry, but it's just extraordinary. I mean, they're part mafia, part gangster, part. I mean, mostly, if they've got some drug dealing, they're probably going to be quite good at Yeah, they've had that kind of lifestyle. It's all part of the good CV. You put it on your LinkedIn page, but perhaps your man
don't
wasn't.
know. Yeah, I don't know if he even came from that sort of background. I've literally no idea.
Yes.
But I just know that we got into the studio to record an album, and which was great. The Windings in Wales, and essentially what happened was he failed to show up with the money, and we ended up being locked out the studio without the master tapes, and he just fucked off.
Did you say you were at Rockfields?
No, Windings, the Windings.
Windings. Oh my God!
Yeah.
So you got the master tape, but you did.
No, we didn't get the master tapes. All we got were the DATs, with some DAT recordings. Remember them?
Right.
The DAT recordings.
Yes.
And they impounded a load of all our gear, most of which was borrowed from other sources by this nefarious manager. It was a total mess. I mean, a total mess. I slunk back to my job at Burger King after a few weeks, having been waved off. It was
that was that Spinal Tap moment where you go,
oh, totally.
Playing, Stonehenge. He's like, no, we're not doing Stonehenge. We're just going to forget it. It was just a bad dream. It's God. That's terrible, isn't it? So then, so what happens with not with Burger King, but then what happens with at that point? Is that the end of the band? You being locked out?
Pretty much. I mean, I think we tried to limp along for a bit, and then my recollection of it is the major rift between me and Mark and on one side and Steve and Pete on the other. Basically, this Glaswegian nightclub owner had offered to lend us the money to buy the tapes and settle up, but it was like some ridiculous interest. And my position was very much, well, I do not want to be indebted to this guy for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
As was Mark's, and the other band members were kind of up for it. That's my recollection of it.
Yeah, of course.
And so that caused like a massive rift in the band, and we couldn't really carry on after that.
Yes. So I know it's tricky. So with yes, I'm so English. That was tricky. So was Life's a Scream? Was that just a kind of the recording from the DAT tapes that sort of got released?
No, Life's a Scream was recorded in Fon Studios in Sheffield and was an EP, and it I think it went out. We actually recorded an album at the Windings, so there's this lost album that we never got to release. And it was so gutting, because me and Mark were going to fly out to New York and mix it with Bob Mould. That was we'd spoken to him and everything. It was all in hand, and then the manager just fucked off and left us in the lurch.
Oh my God!
It was so gutting.
And that's never been seen since.
We were like, no. I mean, we've got DATs and stuff, but we've not got. Yeah. It was basically just lost.
God, lost in time. Jeezy, crazy. So,
actually, I don't know if any. I don't know. I mean, like I say, it's still a long time ago. I'm not sure if any of that stuff's online now. I don't know, because apparently load of stuff's appeared on Spotify and stuff since last year. I don't know who put that up. I don't know what that's all about, but
yeah, the band.
I'll have to have a look at it, I guess.
God, it's just God, that's terrible. Well,
it's a classic, like, it's a shit business, Les McQueen.
Yes.
It's just, yeah. Gutting.
It was gutting, blimey. And I have to say, I've seen some amazing photographs of the band, and it all looked like you're just there to be, like the next, headlining Glastonbury in
Oh,
1992.
really?
What a shame.
I don't. Well, you say that. I don't think. I wish someone had said that to us at the time, because we might have. We might have gone on to do other things.
So when Britpop appeared in sort of that
Yeah.
92, 93 period, did you sort of as you were watching Top of the Pops going, geez, crazy, we kind of should have been, look at bloody hell, Pulp, they were the ones that used to sort of annoy us in our kitchen.
Well, no, I mean, Pulp are very much one on their own anyway. There was and came to that sort of success relatively late. I just remember being really pleased for them.
Yes, that is
But
nice.
brilliant.
It's a lovely story, and obviously the whole John Peel thing that sort of getting the odd John Peel session just kept them kind of going for another year, and then
I mean, everyone in Sheffield knew Jarvis was a star.
Yes,
and it just grew and grew.
And then he did it. The stars lined up. He did the. I don't know, someone pulled.
Well, that's the thing. If the stars aren't aligned for you, it's not going to happen, is it? It's not just a case of being. It's not just a case of being good enough, is it? It's a case of, look, a lot of things happening.
Yeah, I know. You too wouldn't have survived your manager, would they? They have good management. I mean, it does help to have that person who says, look, I can just maneuver these bits for you. It's a bit like one of those science fiction films where they go through some asteroid storm and it gets a bit shaky. But a good manager can sort of navigate that, because they'll go, yeah, I know what you need to do here. But yeah, it's tricky, actually.
So I'm not sure we needed management at that point. I mean, it did seem a bit grand to me, and it seemed a bit weird, but you just go along with it, don't you? Because what else is there? And it was just a very, very odd time. It was so bizarre. Like, he'd drive us to these gigs, and then I'd go into the gig, and like, it's like some little indie club, whatever. Like, take my coat off, be like, save it for the stage. Like, say what for the stage? What are you talking about? It's like ridiculous.
But when was the last time? When was the last time you saw him? Was there a sort of a part in I mean, did you have to have some sort of formal or slightly formal moment where you said to him, we're no longer a band? Oh God, you've slightly frozen. Don't freeze. Oh no, don't do that to me. Oh, come back. Oh, are you still there? Are you still there? You are still there. Oh, you're frozen. Oh, Mitt. I think you've come back in. Are you still there?
Lost you there for a bit.
I know, that was a bit drastic, actually. So I don't know if this. Yeah, my God, you've actually appeared. There's two of you on the screen. It's quite extraordinary.
Two of you on the screen. What's that all about?
That's amazing.
Should we just carry on?
Yeah. So so there was a bit of a gap. So yeah. So when was that? Did you? Yeah. I mean, before your next musical moment, do you have a moment where you sit down as a band and say, "That's that." To quote Jim Morrison, "This is the end." Oh,
I don't remember there being any big ending to it all. I think it just sort of fell apart.
And that was it.
Yeah.
You just walked away in silence.
We just all sort of walked away, and me and Mark formed another band. I don't think Steve ever did music again. But then he was always much more into the sort of business side of things anyway.
Yes. So then you went into Don't Sleep Dream.
No, that was Mark. We were actually that was his solo thing much later. We were in a band called Bolster.
Right.
So we formed a band called Bolster. Which was, really good fun, actually. quite liberating after the Bollweevils, because we were unencumbered by any kind of record deal or life. So it was great. I've got my, another lass in the band. That was brilliant. Claire Lord, who's a brilliant musician, came and joined the band. It's fun.
That's fantastic.
Mate Hugh on bass. Yeah, it was really good fun. I mean, we didn't do a great deal beyond sort of local stuff. I think by that point we were kind of quite sort of disillusioned by it all anyway, and the landscape was changing so much all the time.
This is true. So when did Bolster sort of run up to?
Oh God, early noughties possibly.
The noughties, and then you're now a member of Duck.
That is correct.
Yes,
but in the meantime, so essentially, me and Mark split up as a couple in sort of mid noughties.
Yes.
So we were still kind of doing music together up to that point. And what did I do? I was in a band called Gangs of Feral Youth with my partner Chris Minor and my sister Jane and our friend on drums. So we did that for a bit, and that was just like a local.
Yes.
We played locally quite a lot, And I say locally, I mean we did venture to Leeds occasionally, from Sheffield. So that was good fun. But that all kind of ended. I can't even tell you what year that was, because my sister got really ill.
Oh no.
And then died in 2012. So it was like, so it's really hard looking back on stuff, as I'm sure you can appreciate, because pretty much all my musical kind of formative years were spent with her. We were in bands together, and so that happened. 10 years on, I can kind of look back now fondly.
Yes.
But it's taken a while. It's taken a while to sort of get there.
God, it's hard though. It's really, I mean, that's the strange thing about aging, isn't it? The things that you focus on as you get older are so different to what you had to focus on when you were in your younger days.
Yeah.
And it's just, yes, one's own health, your family, your parents. It's just like,
exactly.
Oh, it's all too
exactly.
weird. So yes, you can't spend too much time wasting. Well, you can.
Well, this is why I like to look forward to what the next project is. You see, and I'm not being so keen up to now in looking back.
No, I don't blame you. I want reminiscing about the 80s. I know.
Let's go back to the 80s. That was great.
As I said, it was different. There was a slightly different landscape, wasn't there? We didn't have those other kind of issues. I suppose that's the one thing I realised about. Like I said, I wouldn't say it's rose tinted, but you just went, oh yeah, we didn't have to sort of focus on those things and worry about those things. We had other things we worried about, but now you look at it and think, God, that wasn't that much to worry about then. But obviously,
it was our youth, wasn't it? And
youth,
that's always good. That's hopefully is always going to be like a magical time. For people, so you look back on it with that fondness, and that you didn't have all that extra stuff, if you were lucky, going on.
So with Duck, is that a band that's just been formed quite recently?
We actually started it in 2016. I was in another band called Fire Suite, again with my partner Chris, and that sort of limped along probably longer than it should have done as well, for me at least. And then Chris started modifying a synth, like an old synth that he got.
Yes.
Because he was making pedals and stuff, and he just got this amazing noise out of this old Casio, like it's really dirty, like kind of noise out of this old synth. We were like, we've got to do something with that. And then we got an old drum machine, and we just basically messed about at home and recorded our first stuff at home, and some people seemed to like it, so we were like, oh well, we'll do this as well. Then got like an old mate of mine in, and to be in the band. She then left. We've now got another mate, Evangeline, in, and it's so much fun. It's like the best fun I've ever had in any band.
God, that's ever. Fantastic. This is good.
Because we're part of that sort of DIY scene, which is like really, really like inclusive and lovely. We feel like we're part of a community. We're involved with a DIY space in Sheffield called Hatch. If anyone wants to look that up.
Oh,
yeah, we've also had like stuff put out by record labels. So our second album, so we were self-released on Bandcamp and stuff up to the second album. That was put out by Hell Hath No Fury Records on CD initially, and then beginning of 2020, had a vinyl release on Reckless Yes.
blimey, this is all very exciting.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so I'm sort of buzzing with it at the moment. It's good fun. Of course, the pandemic, so this album came out, and then we were starting to like get some really good gigs, like playing with, who did we play with? Like Big Joni, lots of really, really good bands. And then the pandemic happened. So we thought we'd be able to go off and tour and promote it, and it didn't really happen. But
that is frustrating, isn't it, actually?
Yes, everyone's in the same boat though, aren't they? It's not like it was just bad luck for us, it was bad luck for everybody. So
well, yeah, I mean, everyone's
really
I think everyone's quite traumatized, especially when they had that year lined up and thought, right, if I can do this and we do this, we'll basically pay some, a few bills off, and we can keep, the project that we've been working on, it's been worthwhile. And it's like, God, it's not been worthwhile. We haven't been able to pay our bills. So it's quite traumatizing.
It was still worthwhile. And believe me, I've never paid any bills off with anything from music. So that's fine. That's
no, I know. I suppose that's the tricky thing. But you've done sort of 2 albums of Stuck as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So this is going really fantastic. So is it the case that when you were in lockdown, were you still? Did you feel quite creative during that period?
No, not at all. Not at all. Didn't write. We had like a really creative period from 2016 up until lockdown. We were involved. We did loads of stuff. There's loads of like little sideline stuff that we did. We were always involved in some kind of musical project. And then as soon as lockdown came along, I haven't been able to write a thing. So I'm hoping that comes back, because we really need to work on the next Duck album. So I personally have found it very detrimental to any kind of creativity. I think it was the whole situation is just so heartbreaking. And yeah, I mean, like my nephew worked in a care home, and in those sort of first few weeks, sorry, this is so grim.
Yes,
first few weeks, it sort of like they were just body bag after body bag coming out, and it was covered up, and this sort of the old folks home, and it's the whole thing is so grim and has been so badly managed. And yeah, I don't know. Loads of people have done. Fair play to them. They've managed to still be creative and still keep their head above water, but I found it really difficult, as a lot of people have. I don't know, what do you think? Have you found it?
No, I think most people just couldn't be asked. They just found it. They just kind of felt completely gutted. There were, lots of people from all over the world have just went, oh, I can't, I haven't, the guitar there, I haven't touched it, I haven't, people who were just like, I've been hoping, I've often thought, as a sort of a thing that a lot of people said, I really wanted to have that kind of space and free time, and then you kind of wish for it and it happens, and then think, no, actually, this isn't.
And then your brain is not playing ball at all, because you can't think of a single thing.
Yeah, and there's
we're starting to again now. Things are opening up a bit. We're starting to write some stuff.
But I think,
and I can't wait to, when we played live a bit.
And there was, like someone in New York who put on a lot of clubs, club nights and ran venues since the 80s, and it was just like, he said, it was just so brilliant. It was so easy, because it was like, probably the first band he ever put on was something like Guns N' Roses. And from then his career just as a promoter was just fantastic. And then seriously, has got no work, no job and no venue anymore at the moment, and doesn't know if that scene will come back in New York. It's just like, my God, that was what I had done.
No, it's horrible. It's decimated huge swathes of the music industry. I mean, we're outside the music industry as it as it were, because we're all do it yourself and just put gigs on at this little place in Sheffield that, you know, it doesn't cost an awful lot to keep going. It wasn't our livelihood. So I think that must have just been absolutely, it's just been dreadful for people whose livelihood it was, you know.
Absolutely. So with the record label that I don't know if you're on it still, but Hell Have No Fury Records, which are based in, is this one that you're still on, or is this
No, they've actually wound down now. But Hell Hath No Fury, yeah, it's basically Holly, who's great. Is in a great punk band called Burning Flag, if anyone wants to check that out. She put it out on CD, and from that, Reckless Yes kind of fell in love with the record, and basically we licensed it to them for a vinyl issue. But it's all very so different from the old days. It's all very ethical, you know, it's all very transparent. They obviously put the money to manufacture the records, and then once that's paid off, it's 50-50. You know,
the simplicity of it is just so different.
Yeah.
There's no one.
We've not got a lawyer.
You don't have to. No technical jargon that will confuse you. So that's great, actually. So I mean, if you could have said something to your 16 or 18-year-old self starting out, is there anything that you would have thought, God, yes, I'd have whispered that in their ear, definitely, or not? You might have said, no, I'd changed nothing. It was all marvelous.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because, you know, where I am now, I'm reasonably, well, I'm happy, you know, enjoying music and life in general. I would say if something feels wrong in your gut, then get out.
Get out while you can.
Sounds really sinister, but you can walk away from things. You don't have to stay in things that are bad for you, that make you sad. You can go off and do other things. I think that would be great advice to anybody, to be honest.
Yes, it sounds like a Joy Division song. Just walk away inside. It's true.
I did have those goth beginnings, you know. It's all coming out.
I know. Did you go to the exhibition in Manchester last year, the Factory Records one? See,
I didn't.
I did pop over and see it. It was quite amazing. But anyway, it's good. I'm so pleased you're still making music, and yes, I will check out.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, and is it easily available? You know, all the music.
It is very easily available.
Oh,
it's on all the usual platforms. I think we prefer Bandcamp. I think that's a really good platform. People can. I mean, will you put like links? And things when this goes out, so I'll send you those. So look in the show notes basically for links and things.
That would be really good, actually. Yes, I'll do that, and then people can sort of go and link in and find it, actually, which is brilliant. Yeah, do that, because it would be good, because often, I mean, I'm not too bad at finding these things, but sometimes you think, God, I'm getting confused.
Well, you know, you can be looking forever, can't you? I'll just send you some links, it's fine.
Yes, I know, once or twice. Well, once or twice you sort of look for something, you know, put in duck. I remember thinking, I remember that band from Leeds called Girls at Our Best, and I Googled it, and it was like, oh my God, I think I've just walked into a porn site, you know. I had to sort of go,
you have to be so careful.
Yes, I know, and you think, God, I don't know. Girls at Our Best, indie band from Leeds. It's like, oh, that's better. But, you know, Girls at Our Best.
Get your search terms.
Yes,
right.
You have to really get them. Don't be too innocent with your search terms with bands like Girls at Our Best. Like, wow, shit, it's too much. Anyway, look, I will check that out. I'll be really excited and curious. I suppose I'd sort of been listening to the band more than trying to sort of locate the sort of solo stuff. But it would be great to hear it, actually. So thank you, and thanks. You know, I know.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to know what you know. If you like it or not, that'd be good to know.
It'd be good. And is it on? I know it's on an awful platform, but is it on Spotify as well?
Yeah, it's everywhere. So you can listen to it on that if you want.
Yes, I will. I know.
But you can actually order the record from Bandcamp. You see, so that's
the best way. Yeah, I know. You feel guilty about Spotify and Amazon now, so that's, Jesus.
Well, I think you're probably someone that buys stuff as well, so I don't think it's a terrible thing as long as you also
Yes.
buy the music.
Well, I'm pleased that people like you are making music. That's the main thing, and
well,
great.
Thank you.
And it's great that you're, and like I said, it's so lovely that most of the bands who had their moment, and doesn't always end that well, have sort of thought, I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is, and just have a nice time with nice people, and we'll do it like this, and we'll play the odd gig, and that, I don't want to disturb the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, no, it does. I mean, it is important. It is really important to me. I mean, one thing I realised when I didn't do it very much, like when my kids were really young for a little bit, and I just thought, well, it's something I've got to do, something I need to do. I can't really be without it now. So,
indeed, I think we're going to leave it there. I know, nice editing. Anyway, look, a massive thank you to Sarah Griffiths for giving me the time for that. One-time member of the Bollweevils, and now currently part of Duck. Indeed. If you want to find out any more information, yes, just Google, you'll find it. And also, if you want to contact me for some nice reason, you can on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just do C86 Show. And also all these have been archived. You can find those on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes. True story. Anyway, look, have a great week. Stay safe.